So I start that today in the context of this sermon all about evangelism, and where I started with this is, I'll just say in my professional work and also having just completed graduate school, one could say that I've become a writer. And with becoming a writer, someone who really loves words. Of course, many words I love for their inherent beauty and sound. Others I love for their meaning, and others fascinate me because of their history, how they were once used, how they are used today, and the fact that all could be very different from how they're used in the future. I mentioned before that this sermon is a part of some of our outcomes that we did as a growth team. That team, if you don't already know, worked over about 18 months to study congregational growth and how growth might work in the context of our own congregation here at UUCD. As we studied congregational growth, not only from a UU perspective, but through a broader interfaith perspective, we often encountered words that we called wounded words. These words were ones that were in one way or another used or abused from our point of view by another spiritual tradition, religion, or the world at large. Thank you, Fox News. One such word was that of evangelism. And this word was not only a word that was hard for us to swallow, but also hard for many other congregations we've been working with to swallow as well. We all have a problem with it. And yet, in the context of congregational growth, some kind of action, like evangelism, is necessary. So, getting back to my love of words, one of the greatest things about them is that we can either change their definition by adding connotations, changing the word altogether, or from all the countless words and all the countless languages on this planet, we can choose another one. Let's take a look at some of the definitions of the word evangelism. From one of my favorite websites from which I get my word of the day, dictionary.com, I find the first definition of this word to be the preaching or promulgation of the gospel. And the second one, missionary zeal, purpose, or activity. Interesting to note that gospel is not capitalized, and the second one doesn't call upon any particular religion or anything like that. The point of this, however, is not the word, it's the specific action. And if we want to see the kind of growth that our leaders who brought us to Danbury had a vision for, we need to start taking this action in a big way. Further, beyond this, I would argue that we need to do this both to grow our congregation as well as UUism globally. If you would imagine, UUism as a religion only has a couple 100,000 people around the world. If we believe in the 7 principles and we believe in the kind of love that UUism brings to the world, then it's our moral imperative to look beyond these 4 walls and invite people in. While we fear that we are imposing our beliefs on others, it's not that at all. We're only inviting them to learn about them and welcoming them to join us if their beliefs resonate with them. We are a volunteer-led religion, and we share the responsibility of ministry with our professional ministers. That ministry includes bringing people who have always been UU and didn't even know it, through our doors. As UUs, I would hazard to guess that, like the growth team, when you hear the word evangelism, thoughts of a brightly lit stage with a minister in full stage makeup and new believers miraculously being healed run across your head. Or perhaps going door to door like the folks in my reading, handing out free pamphlets about the grace of the Savior du jour is another image that flies by in your head. As UUs also, I would say that we have a great freedom to come up with our own way of doing things. We know that, of course, from our day-to-day operations here. Of course, we're not going to do the kind of televangelism that I'm joking about here. No, we might do door-to-door knocking campaign at some point. I would guess that it would be to hand out petitions about marriage equality or some pending legislation for immigrant rights. Certainly the kind of thing we do with great zeal, purpose, and activity. And perhaps could our 7 principles be our own gospel? Something we'll have to decide for ourselves. And that's the point. We have the freedom to choose how we do it. As the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury, we need to decide what the how looks like. And this morning I want to offer some suggestions on that, But first, I want to back up a bit. I thought maybe it would be best if I could figure out what the how would look like for me personally. And then I could launch from there into what it looks like for us as a community and as a religion. Now, I don't mean to make this more complicated, but in my reflection on this, I realized that before figuring out my own personal how, I wanted to figure out my own personal why. Why is it important for me to tell others about UUCD? Why is it important for me to support the growth of UUism around the world? In a matter of a few minutes, I had my answer. It was that of appreciation, hence our opening words this morning. I appreciate on a personal level what I gained from being a member of this congregation, and actually appreciate that I have the opportunity to give my own time, talent, and treasure to such a worthy organization. And from this organization, I appreciate that we as a group I appreciate those things that we as a group do for the greater Danbury area. How I have seen us create great change and make the lives of people so much easier. And in creating that change, I appreciate how we, joined by thousands of other UU churches around the globe, are having immense impacts on the planet. And so with this realization, I find that my why is out of appreciation and really nothing more. Of course, I see, as I said, this is a moral imperative, as I mentioned, but now I see it as something I can do free from guilt or sheer moral obligation. What I do for UUCD and telling the world about this community is expressing my appreciation. Think about it. What do we do when we find a product that we really love? How about a restaurant or a doctor? Maybe our handy neighborhood plumber. People and places we really appreciate. We tell everyone about them. That's a kind of evangelism. And we can do the same thing for this very congregation. So now, how do we move forward from here? Well, I hope that we can all agree that though we may have had some people in our lives who have abused words, we don't have to let them continue to be wounded words. Perhaps we need to come up with another principle that honors the inherent worth and dignity of all words. I don't know. The point is that we should never forget that we have the freedom to change our language and the actions behind those words. And in terms of our how, our organizational how, well, I'll offer some specifics in a little bit, but broadly, I think we need to decide on the how for ourselves personally first. We need to decide on a larger vision for outreach and touch points with our nearby community, and as a religion, we need to demonstrate the kind of impact UUism has had on the world, come up with new and exciting ways to get that information out to people. For me personally, I just assumed that everyone would enjoy coming here, so wherever I go, sharing my appreciation with everyone, I invite them to join us for Sunday worship, a potluck, or some of the great events like the annual auction or for the Gold Guy fundraiser that'll be coming up next month. That's one of the nice things about our congregation and UUism in general. I don't have to know or care about whether or not you believe in Jesus or Buddha to invite you to join us. All are welcome. So that makes word of mouth evangelism very easy. We know that's the best way to get people through these doors. If they hear the passion and the wonder in our voices, they'll show up, just like all of you have today. And then organizationally, I think we need to invest some time in figuring out how we do a better job about getting the word out about our ministries, our social action efforts, and our general presence in the Danbury area. One area where I've worked over the last couple of years, and we definitely need some support for, is figuring out how we can do better with our website. Word of mouth, outreach, and working on our website, those are the two best ways that we can get the word out about our work here. Everything we do should be up there, and it should be up there in a way that shows how great, amazing, and terrific we are. We have to start thinking in terms of news stories and blog posts and getting Reverend Barbara's sermons up there, not in 6 months, but in 6 days. Getting on top of things like this kind of outreach will really get us far. And with these, we'll each have great stories of appreciation to share with our friends, contacts, people you may meet in the checkout line in the grocery store, people you are sitting next to in the movie theater or at the gym or the bank. Well, the list goes on and on, but needless to say, it's anywhere. We should be talking about this wonderful community.